Hello, Melanites. My name is GT.
Hey, I'm Kymmy Cocoa.
And I'm just plain old Kim Sermon.
And we are your hosts for Innovative Black Stations Connecting the Dots.
Yes, and I'm so happy. We have a special guest, Kim Sermon.
That's me, I'm here.
And we're going to chop it up with her and talk about what her business ventures have going on that's new. We're going to touch on a couple of things. Everybody is in hurricane mode all over the country. Prayers for everyone.
Absolutely.
In Florida right now. This week is very
Can't say
challenging.
Florida, you gotta say Florida. You gotta say Florida.
Home state of my co-host GT is from Florida.
All my servants' family's from Florida. All of them.
Wow.
My brother and my nephew are in Florida, but my brother came here. He evacuated. He's in Atlanta, and my nephew stayed in Jacksonville.
My nephew's sitting right tight. He like, Auntie, I'm good. I'm like, all right, there, you sure? He like, yeah, well, we not really right there, but we there. Okay.
And the first thing we're going to do today, we're going to put y'all on game about hurricane preparedness. So, Kim, you want to go ahead and kick us off with the hurricane preparedness?
Yes. Hurricane preparedness. We spoke on this a few episodes ago, and I really want to revisit this about saving money in case of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricane season is a time of an emergency if you live on the Gulf Coast or on the Atlantic Coast, because you just don't ever know when a hurricane is coming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people in New York are living in a bit of like a fog. I mean, I don't think people in New York understand how close they live to the ocean and how at any time it could happen to them.
No, I'm from Long Island, so I'm surrounded by a body of water.
Wow.
We never, ever, at least I haven't in all the 40-something years, even though I've been back and forth living, we don't even think
And see,
about
when I
it.
think about New York, I don't even think about ocean, beach. I don't think
Long
like that. I
Island
just think about
is
city.
Literally
Long
an
Island.
island. Manhattan is an island. And New Jersey,
You turn the corner, it's water. Anywhere you go is water. Everybody got water.
That's crazy.
You know all those bridges you see on television?
Uh-huh.
It's because New York, Manhattan is an island. So you literally have to go over a bridge or through a tunnel to get to Manhattan.
That's how Jacksonville is too.
Right. So I wanted to touch on FEMA for a second. I wanted to talk about Houston. There's just a lot going on. FEMA has to go through a couple of different things have to happen before FEMA gets involved. And I think people are misled and they think that FEMA just steps in like as soon as a hurricane happens and people just like, okay, let me call FEMA. FEMA has to get acceptance from the government first. I mean, they have to say, okay, FEMA take over. There has to be a state of emergency declared by the officials. Once that happens, then they give FEMA the okay.
So not the is the governor like
the governor
how
of
Rick
the
Scott
state.
did with Florida?
Right.
Okay.
And how what's his name in Texas did. They declare a state of emergency, and then FEMA comes out and they see what's going on, and then they proceed.
Listen, real quick, Governor Rick Scott was not playing. Listen, Governor Rick Scott was on TV, I want to say maybe 4 to 5 days before the hurricane, and I mean, he broke it down
what I mean, post-hurracane,
on
like
everything. Everything. Shout out to Rick Scott.
Who's not there like before to make stuff happen?
Right. And even Comcast, man, they open up their Wi-Fi's across all the affected areas like crazy.
Yeah, Comcast did good. Also in Houston, Centerpoint.
Mm-hmm.
No, out of all the flooding that went on in Houston, only like 5 or 6% lost power. I mean, they would.
It's crazy.
You know, they got flooded, but everyone still had their electricity. You really have to prepare for a storm. I can't say this enough. You really cannot depend on the government. When we talk about saving money, because even if your house is not flooded, your job may be flooded, and so what do? I mean, you really have to take all of that upon yourself. If you live anywhere in the Gulf Coast, anywhere on the Atlantic Coast, you know that between June and November, at any point, there could be a storm that could find out how far away you live from a river, from the bayou if you live in Houston, from streams, because the storm surge is what kills people most of the time in a hurricane. I was talking to people in Houston that didn't even realize that they lived 4 blocks away from the bayou.
And this the thing I want people to understand too. Like when it's hurricane season, make sure you got can openers, you got flashlights, batteries, portable chargers for your phone, first aid kit. Make sure you keep cash, wet wipes, paper plates, and some type of activities to keep the kids occupied during the storm, because like I was telling you a couple of days ago, I remember in 2004 we had like 4 hurricanes hit, and we was out of school for like a month.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we didn't have power for a month, and then 2005, 2 weeks we was out of school.
Right.
And we didn't have power for 2 weeks, and that was when Katrina hit.
Right.
So it's important because you never know how long you're gonna be without power and food. And I know even it was a store like in the hood that I was staying in, there was a store where basically, of course, you can't serve hot food, for people who have food stamps, and they was even bending the rules on that. Like, yo, we got hot chicken. Like, people out here hungry. Like, we gonna go ahead and we gonna serve y'all this food. So you just don't know. So you have to be prepared when stuff like that does go on.
Right. So the University of Florida did a study on FEMA, and I'm just going to read directly from what they said. So the basic scenario is, in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, the federal assistance is made available only after a formal request has been made by a state's governor. Mm-hmm. The extent of the impact of a natural man-made event can qualify a region or a state to be declared a disaster. The president makes this declaration, and we've seen that happen with Harvey. Okay. Once that's made, it initiates the efforts of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA,
right,
to react as quickly as possible. Now, mind you, quickly as possible depends on what state you're in. I mean, you might not be able to eat. You might not have electricity. The thing that worried me about Harvey was because so many people lost their homes down in South Texas, the flooding kind of would be, in the grand scheme of things, a lower priority on the list because people are dying. You know what I mean? Like, people are dying in South Texas. Okay, you guys are flooded, but you still have a home. And it just depends on what you can take. Like, I survived, that's what they say, after you go through a hurricane. I survived Hurricane Ike. And for me, that was too much. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even, my house wasn't, my roof didn't come off or anything, but I didn't have electricity
and what you saying that, Miss Sermon, how long have you been in the South?
I just got here 5 days ago, but I've been coming to the South since I was a little kid.
Is this like the first time you've experienced like a hurricane or anything?
No, we had Hurricane Gloria in Long Island, 1983. I remember trees being knocked down and stuff. And we do have bad storms, but not to this extent where people are talking about, we go to the grocery store, I get in, buy extra water, but never, like she said, we never felt the threat of okay, you gotta leave.
Right.
Your house. Smithtown gets flooded because they low. Farmingville's like the high point. I hear about it, but I'm like, I never had no flood unless my toilet overflowed.
Right. I got you.
What happens is, how when we have snowstorms, and they call them nor'easters,
right?
Because during that season of the year, that's when the jet stream pushes all that moisture up our way, so it becomes it's a snow event.
A snowstorm.
I mean, if it was the other way around, that would happen to us.
Right.
But see, because it happens to us when it's cold out,
right,
we get nor'easters. Right. So it just turns into snow and it's fluffy.
I can't fuck with no snow.
And then
and we have them back to back. So those things people are like, oh, you know what, snow? Yeah, we in 8 to 12 feet of snow. 3 days later, we done got it all up. It done came back again. You can't go nowhere. School's closed for a couple of days. We still don't feel devastation.
No. We I mean, Sandy, I guess.
Yeah, Hurricane Sandy messed my car up. Sure did.
Yeah, but see, but look how long you have adults that have never had to go through a hurricane or anything like that.
Yeah.
Also, what I wanted to remind people about with FEMA is FEMA works with local agencies. Like, FEMA does not have high water vehicles. FEMA doesn't have buses ready to take people out. FEMA works in conjunction with local agencies.
Okay.
So we always say you can't depend on the government. We don't trust the government. First of all, let's take it back to make sure that the government officials that you elect, that you vote for, vote, register to vote. I can't say this enough because it goes back to voting. The people that are going to make decisions that will affect your life and your livelihood and your protection are the government officials. If nothing else, if we didn't learn anything else from this, learn that. Because at the end of the day, it's up to President Trump, it's up to the governor, it's up to Greg Abbott, it's up to, you see Sylvester Turner in Houston. Mm-hmm. In one of our next segment, we're going to try to go back in and focus a little bit on
in the And the last thing I want to put y'all on game on, make sure y'all unplug y'all appliances. That's very important.
Really?
Like toasters,
What is that?
microwaves. Like it deals with the electricity.
Oh, the surge.
Yeah, just in case you do
What
get
about
flooded.
a surge protector? But I don't think you can. I don't know.
That's a good question. That's something that I have to find out.